Hello and welcome to Trish TV's The Shift and Lift Mindset Show. And on my show today, I've got a very special guest who is not only an expert and a PhD, she's also a wonderful human being who serves people selflessly, and she is a cervical cancer survivor. And to do that takes a lot of resilience. And we're all about resilience, adapting to change, and leadership. And often that's leading ourselves through difficult paths. And we are going to meet Dr. Danelle Davis right after this. The strongest prison bars are in your head. Leaders and teams, it's time for a jailbreak. Dr. Danelle Davis, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's so exciting. And I must confess, Danelle is a personal friend. We are both members. I met Danelle through my Soroptimist International club of Moreton North, and I'm going to be plugging Soroptimist International through this. If you happen to be a Soroptimist, hey, give us a yay in the comments. Give us a like. Give us a something, and whether it be live or later on in the recording. I know we are recording to LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So in the LinkedIn world, I know there are a lot of Soroptimists because we are professional women, business women, retired of those who are giving back to those who are disadvantaged. And Danelle's way, Dr. Danelle's way of giving back is sharing her journey through cervical cancer diagnosis, treatment. And we're also going to be talking about the book that she created that I read and thought this would be so helpful. So it's not just her story, but it gives advice on caring for yourself, on preparing, caring for yourself, and what you can expect. I know her experience won't be the same as everyone's, but we'll have an opportunity for you to get a copy of the PDF of that book for a donation to the Soroptimists so they can continue their great work. But Dr. Danelle, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go into your story?
Oh, I still think I'm young, but when I try and write CVs and talk about exciting things that I've done, I guess I feel a bit old. I'm not finished yet, especially since I got a leave pass. And this is why the book's called Thriving After Cervical Cancer, because nothing like having a cancer diagnosis to really put life into perspective for you. And then you just put your energies where you think you're going to do the best good. So you work at your highest purpose, if you can find what that is.
Wow, it's so good. And now your background, I know you didn't want to blow your own trumpet, because it was like extracting teeth getting your accolades. So she doesn't want, she said, it's not about me, it's not about me. And that's true, but you're highly qualified in a number of fields. You do have a PhD.
No. I have 5 degrees, and the last one's a Doctorate of Professional Studies, which is higher than a PhD. And I have a postdoc as well. But my postdoc is in ethical innovation and design thinking for, really complex issues, international or global issues. But what could be more complex than your own human body?
Well, look, that's exactly right. It's exactly right. And the thing is, she's one of the cleverest people that I know, and achieved so much. And yet, it when it comes
and I'm
to
not finished yet.
Look, when it comes to our health, and particularly cancer, while there are some things you might be able to do to prevent it visiting, basically no one is immune from adversity. Everybody faces it. And it doesn't matter how clever you are or how much money you have, these things come knocking. And when I talk about my prison experience, I often make the comment that the strongest prison bars are in our head. and you may be facing a cancer diagnosis yourself, or you may know someone who has. And I know with sickness, it can feel like you are imprisoned in your own body, and that's a difficult thing. And what struck me with Danelle when she sent me a copy of her book is her insightful empathy. It wasn't self-pitying, but the encouragement that came through to not be fearful that while some choices, you do make the point about being in the country versus being in the city, and the facilities are not the same. So we're not saying everybody can have the great access that you had, but they do have some options. So talk to us about tell us your story of how you were diagnosed and what that journey entailed. And I'll jump in at certain points to ask you questions about that for people.
Yeah. Well, I might actually copy the 6 steps that are in the book, because, it's only 30 years ago that we were encouraged to have breast tests and pap smears. And at that time, women were very fearful. They thought pap smears were terrible, and really they're not delightful, no, but they've really got much, much better. So pap smears every year if you've got abnormal cells, or as recommended. Now, we've got young women having cervical cancer now. When I first started, it was women over 50, then women over 40, and of course it's anyone who's probably having sex now. So I won't put an age on that because, so now I think it's, and what we're doing now, what we're seeing with young women is that they can get the vaccine in high school. And now we have vaccines for boys in high school so they can stop spreading cervical cancer too. So
hang on a minute. Wait. It's not like it's not like we're saying it's a sexually transmitted disease, but how is it but intercourse can spark it and spread? How does that happen? Is it like the cells agitated? How does that happen?
Well, no, I think we all have human papillomavirus in our system, and it only really flares up when you're run down or there's adverse circumstances, or there's something that triggers it in your body. So no, you don't have to have sex to have a HPV virus or cervical cancer, or what they call as a CIN test. So when you get your pap smear, they'll get back in contact with you, hopefully very fast, if they have abnormal cells or if they have a CIN, which is their levels of CIN. And that is the results that triggers you to go and get some action. I think it's a good trigger rather than just ignore it or pretend it isn't there. So for me, it's the wake-up call that we all need, and it's free. I mean, how lucky are we in this country, and in Queensland in particular, that it's free?
Wow, that's great. And in reference to sexual activity, and we're certainly not saying this to make any judgments. It's just that when you are sexually active, that there's more activity down there, so more things can be woken up.
So yes, and the thing is, men are realising this, and it's only been in the last few years that men have realised that their contribution to women's health. And when we're talking about gynecological health, yes, men are part of the problem and part of the cure, especially if men take proactive steps. So the thing is, yes, it's a family thing, it's a couple's thing, it's a woman's thing, it's a girl's issue. So the thing is, it is everyone. It affects families. But I have good news. I mean, this sounds very drastic, but the good news is it's the first cancer that may be eliminated. And we've got a little video later to show you how to do that, how that might happen.
Wow, that's so, because it's also one of the hardest to, one of the rarest to it's often missed. Like breast cancer, we have is that correct? No.
If girls have their pap smears, and women, because they do invite people, very young women, quite young to do that now, whereas it used to be quite exclusive club, but it's not anymore. I think it's the most preventable. So the thing is, it's ovarian cancer that is the one that we can't pick up.
That's the one. That's the one that's tricky.
My lovely friend died in February last year with very little warning. So, you know, it's around us all the time. And the thing is, it's up to us to take care of our own bodies and our own health.
It really is.
And having a pap smear and being preventable, we really are empowering women to get on the front foot about this. So when everyone's journey is different, as you said, and when we so mine was very simple. Was supposed to be very simple. Are you happy for me to continue?
I would love to. I just want to acknowledge Chris Knight is sharing here that she says sharing our personal stories, especially when faced with a major health risk, encourages many others to gain strength from survivors. You're so right, Chris. Oh, well done, Trish and Danelle. Thank you. Making sure we have our regular pap smears, vaccines, and regular checkups is so important. Namaste. There you go. There is our. Now there's Simney is Soroptimist International of Moreton North. That's brilliant. Thank you, Chris. That's so true. So yes, please share your story.
Okay. The next simple step is after you get your pap smear back, you really need to take some action. Don't wait for the government systems. However, it might be the only that's available to you, and in rural locations, come to the city. Just get on a plane or get on the train, because trains are cheap. Come to the city and get a specialist straight away. And you can get a specialist almost within a day here in Logan. So because Logan specialists have got cancellations every day, and their books are sometimes half full. So please.
That's a great tip. We often think specialists.
It's not written down anywhere, and it's not in my book.
We've just thank you, Doctor. So here's a tip. They have cancellations regularly, and they want to fill them. Yeah. So just keep trying. And is that what happened with you when in your particular story? You had a pap smear.
No,
you had. So tell us, as you're telling us these points, bring your story into it, because it's very, very interesting.
Okay. Well, my little story was that there was a flu going around in 2014 when this was happening in July in winter, and women were cancelling all over the place. So I got into a private gynaecologist that same day. I got the diagnosis at Sunnybank Private Hospital. And I've got a very funny story about that, and it's almost rude if you are.
Tell us. You've mentioned you've got one. You have to tell us.
Oh no, there's lots of other ones, but this one's particularly funny because I'm very tall. I'm just about 6 foot. And of course, in Sunnybank, we have a lot of Asians, and my lovely little gynecologist is about 4'8", and with his heels on. And we went into the first examination room so that he could follow up on what the CIN test revealed. Now, the test I did was actually, I paid an extra $30, and it was one of the newer tests that if you pay an extra $30, every cell that is taken is electronically and properly assessed. The old-fashioned free test only takes one little tiny swab and only does that little tiny bit of the whole smear bit. So I was really lucky. I paid the extra $30 and it really paid off. I got straight in that afternoon once I got the diagnosis. So I was in shock, but I thought, I can't bugger eyes around, so to speak. I can't fiddle around while Rome burns. I can't. So I got straight into this specialist who was very highly recommended. And he had a cancellation because everyone had the flu. So that meant it was good for me because I wasn't sick at all. And so I got in that same afternoon, and he said, I think we need to do a simple LETS. It's like a lasso, and there's cartoons and that in the book, sketches. And what it does is there's this little LETS loop, and LETS is a great big, long scientific name, LETZ, double LETZ, and it's a loop. So what they do is they put the loop up into the cervix and cuts the cervix off, because that's the area that you had your pap smear test, and that's the area that had the abnormal cells. It also, that's a very good illustration, but it also stops these abnormal cells from going further into your reproductive system. So really important that this lasso, you get in there and you lasso under anaesthetic, of course, and the lasso is supposed to go around all the parts that don't look right and zips it off, zip it off, and then they assess the biopsy. So if the biopsy has got all healthy cells around it, yay, you can forget about cervical cancer because you've just stopped it. But guess what? They didn't get all of mine. So he immediately, but I didn't tell you the funny bits about my lovely little gynecologist. He was so lovely. And it was so awkward. I was so big, and here he is trying to do these inspections, and he was so tiny.
Now, how tall are you, Dr. Danelle? How tall are you?
Well, with heels on, I'm definitely 6 foot, but I'm just under. I'm a big girl. So this, but of course, he's used to having Asian patients who are just so petite and tiny and lovely, and he had this little bed that I hardly fit on, and my bottom was so wide it went over the edges, and he felt that that bed wasn't appropriate. So he gave me this little tea towel size things as a vanity towel. I'll call it a tea towel, and took me to the next surgery, which had a slightly larger bed and with stirrups and whatever else. But anyway, I was still too tall. My legs were too long. I felt like a mummy long leg, a daddy long legs spider, but I was really a mummy long legs. And he had to get a little stool. So he had to get a little stool to climb up, to get all over my knees and my body to do the right sorts of things. But as it worked out, he was able to use really new innovative instruments and other things to actually do the measurements and to do the little machines that go ping and all sorts of other things. So you can imagine, I was just bubbling with laughter at some of the antics that happen. I mean, what else can you do? You're so embarrassed. Oh, well, you're not embarrassed because it's your body and you're working with a professional, so he must know what he's doing. Otherwise, he wouldn't have such a good reputation. And
anyway, you make a really good point, though, that if anybody's going through this, please don't let your embarrassment stop you from freely talking with your specialist. And I know it's hard, but a sense of humour is gold, not just in those embarrassing times, but even when you are doing it tough. Would you say that?
Yeah. When I think that's the Australian way, Yeah. We really, that's our way of coping, is to make a joke out of these things. And thank God. I mean, it's a wonderful pressure valve. And it was a great pressure valve for him too, because he was becoming concerned. Funny about that, because I'm very tall and my insides are very long, apparently. So, yes. So I'm proportional. So, but not the proportions he's used to working with. Anyway, he gave me said that I really had to get in there and get this LETS done. And I was very lucky because he had a cancellation and he wanted me to do it straight away. But I really wanted it. I really wanted a second opinion, and that's why I was able to get into the Logan specialists straight away. As soon as I rang up for a specialist for a second opinion on this, I got in. So, no, please. So anyone who's going through this in rural Queensland or rural anywhere in Australia, get to the cities, because there's a lot of support here and it's hidden. It's hidden support, and you don't realise how easy it is if you ask. So you've got to get off your bum and ask.
You do. Now, what I'm sharing now, again, is the same image. This is from Dr. Danelle's book, Survivor, How to Thrive After Adventures with Cervical Cancer, and she spells it CERVIVOR. It's not available in the bookstores, but it is available online. and we'll put those details in. But so when your specialist added his extension pole to the scraper, this is where it went. It took this part here, and
well, I call it a lasso.
The lasso, yes. And you've got, this is part of your book. Yeah, this is what you'll receive in the as a PDF, and it's very easy to read. And what I love about it is that, Danelle, you have put links to extra resources that people can look up to see these.
Yes.
And it's just got some delightful illustrations.
Some of us,
oh my goodness, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it feels like too. But I did want to explain to people what to expect when you go into hospital.
Yes,
you know, you're going to have caps and gowns, you're going to have to wear funny pants or none, and then you're going to have metal nipples all the way down. And I had to laugh so much about all these metal nipples because I looked like I was a nursing mother dog, you know, a nursing bitch, because I had all the nipples. And sometimes they forget to take the nipples off. So here you are at home trying to get all with eucalyptus oil to try and get the sticky stuff off, and you've got spare nipples. So, but the thing is, you have nipples for every operation. Every time you go under anaesthetic, you've got to have the nipples, because they clip the instruments on there, and they take all your vital statistics. So while you're under anaesthetic, they can just monitor everything, and you're safe. So nothing, no concerns. Bring on the metal nipples. I don't care if you call me a bitch or a nursing dog. Yes, I think they're just wonderful inventions, and it's got
brilliant.
But because I went through stage 1, which was the lasso, I was they didn't get everything. So at that time, my private gynecologist recommended that I go through the public system. Now, the Mater Oncology is absolutely fantastic. I can't speak more highly of them. And they have social workers and occupational therapists and a whole range of other support services with them as part of the oncology. But every Monday morning, 9 oncologists or 9 specialists meet, and every one of us, patients, people, victims, whatever you like to call us, survivors, some. Anyway, we have a case manager, and the case manager will get back to you straight after their meetings and talk to you personally. My case manager was a surgical nurse, so she was very matter-of-fact, very sensible, and answered all my difficult questions, because, of course, I'm analytical. I want to know all these difficult questions, because when I get an answer, I can feel more reassured, I can be more empowered, and know what to expect when I go into a difficult or unfamiliar situation. And you're so vulnerable when you're going into operations.
You are, and I love what you just said about having the information and I would encourage people, don't be afraid to find out the information. And I would not go to Dr. Google, because you'll get all sorts of terrifying things come up. But do, as Danelle did, talk to the people who are advising you, and ask your questions. Don't feel intimidated that they're the experts and you just have to do what they say, because even though it might feel scary and you don't want to know these things helps you feel you might be able to control some of them. Yeah, so that's a great tip. Thank you, Danelle.
But anything scary that we're going into, the more you find out about it, the fear factor goes down. And once it still doesn't replace going through the hoops, though, but at least you're as empowered as you can be before you go in. So, yeah. But when I was so pleased with the Mater Hospital, and I gave them all lots of questions and lots of curry, because my anaesthetics, I was a bit, I got very sick after the first anaesthetic. So I said, look, you have to do something better about this. And yes, they looked after me, and they did quite a few assessments before I went under. So, and to find out I've only got a 7% risk of dying under anaesthetic is quite lovely. 7% is nothing, you know. But I still did the precautionary things. I still wore the stockings. I still wore all their wonderful contraptions. I still did all the bits that they wanted me to do, as if I was, you know, just any other patient. But see, patients around me, we get to know each other when we go to oncology, and you get to know the other people you're in the waiting rooms with. And every week, one of them was either on the slippery slope or died. One young girl, 32, died. That was part of our group, as if you call us groupies. But having that around us was really important. It's a bit of a reality check when people don't come back. However, Queensland Cancer Council did not have any leaflets or anything in the waiting room. So I went to them afterwards. And we set up a system so that they would renew all their support systems as well. Because not only do you need support when you're going through these things, and I'll explain a little bit how wonderful I felt about the social worker who organised Centrelink, because you're going to be off work for a while. Depends what sort of operation you're having. But any operation where they're cutting you, you can't go in the water for 6 weeks. Sometimes you can't drive. You're very fatigued. And with a hysterectomy, which was stage 4 for me, there was a few other stages in between. You're not well enough to work. You don't have enough energy to even concentrate, to even have a TV interview like this. It would be too difficult. You're just not with it. But my social worker put Centrelink things, and I thought, I don't think I'm entitled to Centrelink. She said, you're not going to be working for a while. And I was a contractor then. She said, we've got to get things in place for you. And she did. There were 6 steps I had to do with her. And then I went to the occupational therapist who prepared me to help me get my home in shape, because I'm going to be a disabled person after hysterectomy. So I better get my place proactively set up so that this disabled person, me, would be able to cope and to live as independently as possible. But look, I couldn't bend. I couldn't roll in the bed. I had to learn how to do all those things. I had to learn. I couldn't bend for weeks, so things had to just stay on the floor if they fell. I couldn't get to the bottom.
Yes. Look, and what I love too, when I was reading your book, you had all these interesting practical tips, and one of them, as you got better, one was the lazy Susan on your car seat. I mean, how smart is that? You think about it, if you've got to drive somewhere, or even as a passenger, you've got to sit and twist. So if you put some like a lazy Susan there, you sit on it, and you
just sit sideways gently, and then you just very gently leave your legs together. You can't do any spread eagles. You can't get in sports cars. You can't get on motorbikes. You just have to. You can't get in 4-wheel drives.
Right.
There's a whole heap of things. Depending on your height, I suppose. You can't. Sometimes you have to change your bed. Your bed can be agony. You might need a different height bed, or put 3 more mattresses on top, or whatever it is, because it might hurt you too much, because you've got internal stitches as well as and you don't want to.
Practical, because not everyone tells you these things. This is really helpful.
Right. I'd had a few strange things when the computer ejected me out of my bed in the ward, and there's a story behind that, and that's this is another real frightening thing for me, was when you have a hysterectomy, you have instant menopause. It's overnight, because all your reproductive chemical systems disappeared. So there's 5 different sorts of hysterectomies, and they encourage you to have the ones that are suitable for probably more than less. So of the 5 sorts, they might actually. There's a picture at the end of.
There is. Let me bring it up again. Oh, that's you dancing. But
that's our fashion parade. That's the hospital fashion show. Yes.
Okay, but you had some pictures of bending.
I think it's on page 9.
Back at the start.
Page 9. Anyway.
That's okay.
When you have your ovaries removed, you're having a part of your chemical system removed, your endocrinology balance. So instantly you have menopause. And you can know how women feel when they go through natural menopause, except you just accelerate that into 24 hours or less straight away. So you're totally irrational. You're totally, and there's several reasons to be irrational, because you're coming out of anaesthetic, you're coming out of, you're very, very vulnerable. You're weepy anyway because you're weepy, because you hurt so much, and you're in shock. Your body's in shock, and then you have instant menopause on top. So you're totally off. You're just not your own person, and that is true vulnerability. You really are at the mercy of your nursing staff and your caregivers, and then once you start to get better and get your independence again, life is easy. But you're just irrational for that. Well, it's the politest way I can say. So you're not yourself. And I thought they removed some of my brain when that was happening, because I thought this is not a rational way for me to make decisions. But you don't realise that it's just your body reacting, and it happens to everybody. And the nurses are used to this. Oh, well, you hope so. I had wonderful nurses, mature age nurses, and so I was very fortunate to have that sort of compassion, which I don't think is taught in nursing anymore.
Look, I don't know if it ever was. I think it was compassionate people became nurses, and then, it hasn't always, stayed that way. And sometimes you've got people who are technically skilled, but because they're dealing with it day to day, and when something is common or it happens all the time, you can become desensitized to it and be a bit matter of fact about things and forget that there's an actual person in front of you with a family that loves them. And I love what you've said about that it involves all the family, that it's helpful for partners to understand what's going on, because they want to support you through it. They love you. They want to be there for you. And they don't always know whether your reaction is part of that process or something else, or...
Well, when you got menopause, you're totally irrational. So sit there and hold her hand.
Yeah. And look,
but even with your children, whether they're teenagers or 30 or little children, we really have to talk to them too, because it's all a big mystery to them. And if you say nothing, it's just feel more frightening for them. So the more you talk about it, the more you share, the more you, talking about it also helps us to articulate our worries and our concerns as well. So if we're able to articulate, that takes such a pressure off if we don't get the chance to talk or cry or whatever we need to do, belt the pillow, if we don't get a chance to do that, it just makes us sick inside. So we've really got to let it out, and we have to do that whatever gentle means we can.
Yeah, yes, we really do. I love that you've shared this. I love that you are, you were at the time, you still are, but at the time you were at your peak of doing amazing high level things.
Yes.
And you didn't want me to mention this, but you were involved with the United Nations. I mean, this is one smart cookie, this lady. She's doing some really high-level stuff.
I was doing some fantastic stuff.
Screaming
and
halt.
It all came crash,
Yep.
And I lost all my status. I was a counsellor for Southeast Asia. I lost all my status. I had lost all my contracts, except for my master classes. I put them off. But I went back to master classes, and I went back too soon, like 5 months later. And you'd think 5 months is not that long, but it was so exhausting. I couldn't do the things that I was doing before. Mind you, I thought I was a bit, superwoman before, a bit invincible before. And I probably think I'm invincible again now. But, I did go back, but you don't know what your boundaries are until you test them. And
look, you don't.
And
you don't.
A funny little story there.
But not only that, though, let's not leave it there, because you did recover and you did continue and resume. Like, yes, your boundaries are different, but I want to encourage people not to give up either, just because you were doing all this great stuff and you've had to get treatment. Danelle has gone on to continue doing amazing things, but she also takes good care of herself in doing it. So I know that you've got boundaries in place for your health and for caring for you and for your relationship, so that you're actually you probably achieve more now that's effective because your life is a bit more in balance. Would it be fair to say that?
My energy is important, and that's why I say thrive after cancer, because otherwise you just spread yourself too thin. After cancer, you have such wake-up calls. You just work at your highest purpose at the right time, at the right energy that you can. And if you can't, you just have to quit that and go another path. So
That's
I'm
right.
got the sword out when I need to have the sword out.
Yes, and Dr. Danelle, she sent me a text and said she said something about her age, and then she went, no, I'm a young person with lots and lots of experience, and I like that. You're not an old person. You're a young person with lots and lots and lots of experience. And that's the great attitude to go forward in. Oh, my goodness. Well, look, we're going to wrap it up now. It's just been so brilliant to talk with you, Dr. Danelle Davis. And I'd like to let people know, I will put, if you're watching on Facebook, Chris Knight has helped has put the connection details in for if you want to give a donation to receive this book, and also an email. And I was thinking I will add that to each of the texts of the broadcasts on LinkedIn and YouTube. I'll add those in there as well. Plus the email, if you'd like to, you could send an email to the Soroptimist Club to let them know that you're interested in the book, and then they can maybe send you the banking details that way as well.
Could I encourage everybody who buys a book can get the video from WHO and the UN, because January this year, January 2022, is when we're having the cervical cancer recognised by the UN, and it's maybe the first cancer that we can eradicate completely, because we know what to do about it now.
We do. And I'm going to play that United Nations video.
Okay.
Let's see. I've got that clued up. I will.
There's a new one, but that still has the same data in it.
I love this one. So we're gonna have this. We're gonna play. It's 60 seconds. We'll play this, and then we'll say hello and goodbye again. So let me go share screen, and I'll move this out the road here, and hope that sound's coming through.
In 2018, over 300,000 lives were lost to cervical cancer, and the problem could soon be much worse. But right now, we can come together to eliminate this cancer for good. If by 2030, we can have 90% of girls vaccinated, 70% of women screened for early signs of cancer, and 90% of patients receiving treatment, in the coming years, we can save millions of women's lives. Each one a daughter, a partner, a mother, a friend. Together, we can create a cervical cancer-free future.
That's great. My goodness. I love, hold on. Turn that off. So, yes, it's just been wonderful to have you on. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we go?
No, just thank you, all the women who've supported me. And please, any young women, you don't need an invitation to get a pap smear. Just do as soon as you can, and keep it up as a good discipline for self-preventative, proactive health.
Just brilliant. Well, thank you for being on our show. Thank you for joining us, watching. And if you're watching the recording, feel free to pop a comment in the chat wherever you are. And feel free also to like and share this video, particularly this video. If you can share it with someone that may be looking at that issue for their family, then hopefully this will bring them some comfort, some tools, some tips, and
I
some
think the book is
resources.
probably more useful than our conversation today,
Well, if they
because we've
watch
only
this,
just scratched
yeah.
the surface.
Yeah, well, they'll have to watch this to get the book, so to
Okay.
find out about the book. So
Yes.
whatever you
Yeah.
need to, just send that person love and practical advice as well. All right. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
It's just been wonderful to have you on the show, and we will see you all next time for Trish TV's Shift and Lift Mindset Show. And I feel like I have shifted and lifted my mindset around cervical cancer thanks to Dr. Danelle.
Thank you. Okay. Bye.